Fit Podcast, episode 115, Goat Milk Stuff with PJ Jonas.
Yeah, I had no clue what I was doing either. It was very much a learn as you go process. And, I figure that, people for thousands of years have been drinking goat milk, and, more people around the world drink goat milk than they do cow milk. So, and most people, like, goat milk gets a really bad rep in America. Most people think goat milk, they think ew. And I think a lot of that has to do with the stuff you get at the grocery store. I've never had it, but I've heard it's kind of nasty because a lot of the stuff that goes into the grocery store, goat milk, are, large feedlots. They're not really taking good care of the animals. But when you get good goat milk that's raised from healthy goats out on pasture and the animals are clean and their milk's clean, then I've done taste tests with people where, people are so funny because it's so in your head, right? And I'll, put a glass and I'll write down which is the cow and which one is the goat. So they know I didn't switch it on them, and they'll drink the cow milk, right? And they'll go, ooh, I can taste the goat in it. And I'm like, I'll show them as they get, so much of it too, I think, is just people, if you have that expectation that's going to be gross, then, you'll kind of meet that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Welcome to the Live Fit Podcast with Glenn Johnson, your resource for all things that contribute to good health. You will hear expert advice and interviews with leading authorities on fitness, food, fat loss, mindset, and the mind-body connection. You will find show notes, articles, and health programs at livefitpodcast.com.
Yes, it is time once again for the Live Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Johnson, your guide to better health. Today, I'm speaking with a goat roper, PJ Jonas. She is a business owner, goat wrangler, entrepreneur, and mother of 8 children. After getting goats to provide healthy milk for her family, she decided to put some excess milk into a batch of soap. That decision was the start of Goat Milk Stuff. Goat Milk Stuff has been on The Today Show, The Doctors, and Oprah Winfrey's magazine. This is an amazing story of how one person started a business in her own kitchen and grew into $1 million business. Plus, it's amazing how healthy goat milk is compared to dairy milk. Check it out, see what you think, and there's all kinds of products that you can make with goat milk. Who knew? Let's hear what PJ Jonas has to say about goat milk. Hi, PJ. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Well, and you wake up on a goat farm. I mean, how bad can that be?
Yeah, I am very blessed with what I get to do. I get to work with my family and outside and inside on rainy days, and it's a pretty charmed life I live.
It sounds like kind of a dream. I've actually been watching the show called Pioneer Quest, and though I don't actually want to do it, there's a lot of it that sounds very appealing. Just the simple life, tending to chores with animals, and the only work you do is for your survival to get food and shelter and all that stuff, and no phones. There's stress, but it comes and goes, and there's very little stress. So a lot of it's very appealing.
The homesteading lifestyle, the farm lifestyle can be very idealized because it's a lot of hard work, right? And
right.
People can often just kind of take the, oh yes, you get to play with baby goats all day kind of mentality, and it's not that. But if you are good with hard work, and you're good with being physical, and you're good with working a long day and knowing that you've accomplished something, it's the best kind of lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, I figured, and I'm sure there's really hard days where you wish you could just push a button and let everything happen on its own. But I suspect that the good times outweigh the less than good times, because otherwise you wouldn't still be doing it.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, there's, some of the stuff that goes on farm, especially you have a livestock farm, is you're dealing with live animals. And unfortunately, there are times when those live animals get sick and some of them don't make it. And so those tend to be the hardest times when you're dealing with that, and you can question, why am I doing this again? But, that's just for a short time. And you quickly realize that, no, it is worth it. And yes, that's just a part of life. And you just, you learn to move on.
As long as you're not asking yourself, why am I doing it every day, I think you're probably in the right thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have lots of reasons. I know exactly why I'm doing what I do.
So how'd you get into goats?
It really started because I wanted healthy food for my children. I have 8 children. I homeschool them, and I do a lot of learning and reading and studying. And I was really becoming very disenchanted with our food supply. Our food supply is based on large scale conventional agriculture that requires, pesticides and herbicides and hormones and feedlots and all sorts of stuff that I think reduces the health of the food that we eat. And I think that we see a lot of that when you just look at the diabetes levels and obesity levels in America. And so I was just trying to get as natural as possible with the children's food. And so my husband calls chickens the gateway animal. So I managed to talk him into letting us get some chickens so we could have healthy eggs. And once I started that, then it just kind of steamrolled from there. And the next thing I wanted was the goats, so we could have a healthy supply of raw milk that we could trust.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk my wife into chickens, but she's got her heels dug in pretty deep.
Yeah, I don't get that. They're so easy to take care of. A little bit of food, a lot of water, sunshine, and voila, you get these really good eggs.
I know. I've had them before. Our friends have them. Part of the problem is that we live in a kind of a neighborhood that's not really farmy like.
We started on kind of like a some people would have considered it a subdivision, but it had really large lots, couple acres each. But they
Nice.
have those like they call them chicken tractors, where you and you can get them and they're super nice, and you just get hens. You don't have any roosters, so they don't make they don't crow and bother your neighbors, and they're certainly much less annoying than having a dog in the backyard for neighbors. So I've seen a lot of more annoying dogs than I have annoying chickens.
Believe me, I'm sold on that. So you lived in a 2 acres. You got chickens. Did you get goats there?
We did. Yeah, it was actually 3 acres. I got the chickens for the eggs, and then I got the dairy goats. And we started out with 2 because you can't have goats by themselves. And the thing about goats is they need to have babies to have milk. So the herd kind of keeps growing until you learn that you can't keep every single goat you have, and you have to manage it. So yeah, we were, the children, as part of their homeschool education, were taking care of the goats. They were learning how to milk. I was learning what to do with all the milk. I mean, obviously we drank a lot of it, but I learned how to make cheese and gelato and fudge and all sorts of yummy stuff with all the milk we had.
Now, did you like drinking goat's milk before you bought the goats?
I'd never had goat milk before. I was actually a little bit worried because I was a skim milk drinker, and I was worried that and I hated whole milk from the grocery store. I thought it was nasty. So I was kind of worried that I wasn't going to like the goat milk, and it was like the best thing I'd ever tasted. It was so good.
Wow.
So yeah, I love it.
So you just jumped in with a milking animal to provide milk for your family without ever having tasted it.
Yeah. I had no clue what I was doing either. It was very much a learn as you go process. And, I figure that, people for, thousands of years have been drinking goat milk, and, more people around the world drink goat milk than they do cow milk. So, I figured
how bad can it be?
Yeah, if I figured if I didn't like it, it was an acquired taste. And, and most people, like, goat milk gets a really bad rep in America. Most people think goat milk, they think ooh. And I think a lot of that has to do with the stuff you get at the grocery store. I've never had it, but I've heard it's kind of nasty, because a lot of the stuff that goes into the grocery store, goat milk, are, large feedlots. They're not really taking good care of the animals. But when you get good goat milk that's raised from healthy goats out on pasture, and the animals are clean and their milk's clean, then it, I've done taste tests with people where, people are so funny because it's so in your head, right? And I'll, put a glass and I'll write down which is the cow and which one is the goat. So they know I didn't switch it on them, and they'll drink the cow milk, right?
Yeah.
And they'll go, ooh, I can taste the goat in it. I'll show them as they get, so much of it too, I think, is just people, if you have that expectation that's going to be gross, then, you'll kind of meet that as a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right, exactly. And they probably think that goat milk tastes like goat smell.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I mean, if you've ever been on a cow farm, they don't really smell a whole lot better. But in breeding season, when the bucks go into rut, they have a very, very strong smell. But your regular does, your milking animals, they just smell like farm animals, and a lot of that is just how clean you keep their pen and how much grass they have access to, so they're not lying down in it, and that sort of thing.
Right, right. What about sanitation? So you milk these goats, and do you immediately drink their milk fresh, raw, or is there some sort of processing to ensure there's no evil bacteria lurking?
Okay, so two things. First of all, how the milk tastes is directly correlated to how quickly you chill it. So one of the things a lot of people do wrong when they get goats and they start milking is they figure that if they just milk and put it right in the fridge or even the freezer, it's gonna, the milk is gonna chill down quickly. And that's not true. You really have to put it in an ice water bath. That's the only way you can really get it to cool down quickly enough. If you don't cool it down quickly enough, you will have a stronger, that goaty flavor. It's the caprolic acid in there. It's actually what people are tasting. So chilling it down quickly is super, super important. But we do drink our milk raw. The family all drinks our milk raw. So we actually have, we didn't at the beginning, but now that we have our goat milk stuff business, we have a bulk tank, which chills the milk down instantly. And so we just take it directly out of the bulk tank and drink it. But the whole raw versus pasteurized is a huge debate. And so I have to give you a little bit of background. So, for thousands of years, people drank their milk raw. And then what happened was with the Industrial Revolution, people moved into the cities and they were bringing the milk in from the countryside to the cities, and they didn't have refrigeration. And so they were going into the crowded cities, and the milk was unhealthy. It was there was bacteria in it. There was tuberculosis in it. People didn't, people didn't understand how disease spread. And so there ended up being a lot of deaths from this raw milk that was coming in from the country. So at that same time, two separate things happened. Pasteurization was discovered. We discovered that if we pasteurized, we could kill the pathogens. And we also started to understand how cleanliness affects things. So at that same time, there were two schools of thought going, and one started to pasteurize and one started to get clean milk from the country, keep it cold, and make sure people were washing their hands, that sort of thing. The problem with pasteurization is pasteurization kills all the bad stuff, but it also kills all the good stuff. And at the same time, you can have unscrupulous farmers who are not being very clean because they know the milk is going to be pasteurized. So if you have a source of clean milk that is properly taken care of, that is going to give you some health benefits that you're not going to get from, milk that's, the cows or goats aren't really as well taken care of. And then they're just using pasteurization kind of as a cover up to fix all of that. So that's kind of the two different things. And of course, what ended up happening was one of the, someone with a lot of money ended up buying the pasteurization equipment and just, poured tons of money into it. And so that one kind of jumped ahead. And that's why, it's the prevalent method here in America.
Now, is goat milk any different than cow milk in the propensity for it to acquire bacteria? Because I know a milk guy, and he tells me that one of the big problems is that the bacteria will colonize in little pockets in the milk, and so you could, take a sample from 5 different areas of this milk container, and if you don't get one of those colonies of the bacteria, you're going to think it's clean, yet there could be some right next to where the spoon or the test tube or the dropper reached in for the sample.
Yeah, so that's pretty technical. So what's going on with that is usually they're testing the pasteurized milk, okay? And the issue with testing the pasteurized milk and what he's talking about with having the pockets of colonies is when you've pasteurized it, you've killed everything, right? You've essentially got a sterile product.
Right.
So if it then at that point gets contaminated, there's nothing in that milk to keep that contamination bacteria in check, right? So because it's got all the milk sugars, it's got nothing competing with it, and it just grows and grows and grows.
Gotcha.
When you're dealing with raw milk, there's other live good, you know how we say when you take antibiotics, go out and have, yogurt with the live cultures in it, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of beneficial live cultures. Well, in the raw milk, those are going to compete with the bad bacteria if it gets contaminated. So, I liken it to, if you've got pasteurized milk that gets contaminated because it proliferates so quickly, that's when a lot of times you end up with deaths, with people getting sick and dying. With raw milk, you're going to end up more with, a bad case of diarrhea or vomiting, than you are, because there's that competing stuff. So yes, that is an issue. When the milk is tested, it needs to be agitated very, very well to be able to do that. But as far as the difference between cows and goats, no, there really isn't, as far as one being more likely to be contaminated or cause problems. The biggest difference between cow and goat milk is the digestibility of goat milk. Goat milk is much more digestible, so people are able to get a lot more of the nutrients because they're more bioavailable, and they don't have the issues with lactose intolerance with goat milk, because even though goat milk does contain lactose, because it's more digestible for whatever reason, and there's a lot of schools of thought on why, but people don't have the reactions to the lactose that they do with the cow milk, which is harder to digest.
Yeah, thank you. You segued right into my very next question. And do you know any more about that than what you just said, as to why people who are lactose intolerant can tolerate goat milk?
They really don't. I've talked with a couple professors. They have their suppositions. One of the schools of thought is, okay, so gets a little more complicated, but in Australia, they're doing a lot of research right now, and the main protein in milk, it doesn't matter what kind of milk, is called beta casein. Okay, that's what typically causes people's allergies. That's what they're having the allergic reactions to, is that casein. And they've discovered that there's a mutation. So there are two types of beta casein. One is called A1 and one is called A2. Most goats are A2. Okay, most cows in the United States are A1. And what they're showing is this A1, they're starting, it's not proven yet, but they're starting to show correlation, not causation, but correlation between that and the issues with, lactose intolerance, the different stomach, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, things like that, with this A1 mutation. So that's one school of thought. And the other is because goat milk is more digestible, it passes through your system and your intestines and your colon and all of that faster. So there's not as much time for it to be in there to cause problems. And then the third school of thought has to do with the fat molecule, which doesn't even have anything to do with the lactose. But in cow milk, the fat globule is larger than in goat milk. And so there's a school of thought out there that says that larger fat globule is being stickier on your intestines, and that's causing some of the issues and what's making the reaction to the lactose as well. And then there's another school of thought that says it's got absolutely nothing to do with lactose. We call it lactose, and it's got nothing to do with lactose, and it's really more of the protein. And there's a little more controversy with that because people, say they can drink the lactose-free milk, whereas they can't drink the regular milk. But it's a little more complicated than just taking out the lactose.
Wow, that is there's just a whole lot swirling in my head there.
Yeah, and like I said, they're studying this. They really haven't figured it out exactly. I mean, milk seems like such a simple item, but it is so complex, how it is made and how it is formulated. And the differences, most people don't realize how much the milk changes throughout the course of the year and all of those things. So
from one animal, the milk one animal will produce changes throughout the year?
Yes, very big changes.
So
yep.
So when it first starts lactating, it's going to be different because it's expecting a tiny little goat to be drinking it. And then as the goat ages, it is going to change its composition, right? Is that what you're saying?
There's some changes because of that, but there's also changes because of the weather, because of the quantity, right? Goats and cows go through a lactation curve that changes during the length of how long they're lactating. So the amount of milk solids versus fluid first the water content in it. We make cheese. That's something we do here at Goat Milk Stuff. And throughout the course of the year, how the cheese is made, how it sets, how it tastes, the fat content, all of that changes throughout the course of the year. And when you're talking the milk supply for just commercial dairies in the United States, you're pooling the milk from thousands of animals. When they pasteurize it, they actually remove all the fat to pasteurize it. They pasteurize the fat separately from the milk, and then they put it back together in known quantities, right? So 2% milk versus 1% milk versus whole milk is standardized at 4%. And so that takes out a lot of that natural variation, whereas when you're getting the milk off the farm, which is really by far the best way to get it, you get to see some of that variation and taste some of that variation. And I believe that it's better for us when we have that variation throughout the year, because it's not just the animal changing, but people change throughout, the cyclical part of the season as well. So I think there's a lot of things that we don't even understand going on there right now, because there's not a lot of people really studying it, because all the money is for the big commercial dairies and not for the small guys.
That's pretty fascinating. And so let me ask you this. Is it, are all your animals in sync? Are all your goats in sync? So every, the same month of every year, they all pretty much are putting out the same type of milk, or are they on their own schedule? Because you said something about the weather and the season.
Yeah. So we milk a breed of goats called Alpines, and they are what's called seasonal breeders, which means they come into heat in the fall, they get bred in the fall, and they have their kids in the early winter into the spring. So there's only room for so much variation. Like the earliest we can get kids is the very, very end of January, and the latest we've ever gotten kids was June. And you really can't get them outside of that time. So there's that variation there, because kids born in February and goats starting to milk in February are going to have a very different curve than those born in June. We prefer them to be born earlier. We try to have as many done in February as possible, because over the years of doing this, we found that those are the healthiest kids. They're not, they're hardy because they're, being born in the cold, and they're dry. They're not cold, but they're not competing with flies and bugs and the pests, that are all in the grass and stuff. So we found those, for us, that's when we much prefer to have our kids born, is February.
And so the milk from those goats will taste the same, whereas one that had one born in June, it'll taste, comparatively, the other ones will taste different.
You're going to taste a slight difference, only if you have a really sensitive palate. We don't see it so much in the drinking and the fluid milk as we do when we make the cheese. That's when you're really seeing the differences play out. So, for example, our cheese at the beginning of the year will take about 12 hours to set, right, for the curds to form, and the whey to separate. Towards the end of the year, it's taking closer to 24 hours for that to happen. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, so it's you'd have to be really, really have a refined palate to be able to taste the difference in fluid milk, but it's those other things that you see it play out, because you're doing things with the milk to turn it into cheese or yogurt or whatever kind of product you're making.
So what all kinds of products do you make with goat milk?
So Goat Milk Stuff started being goat milk soap. That was our primary product. I had made the soap because I didn't want all the chemicals on my children's skin that you get in commercial soap. And when I made the goat milk soap and put it in our shower, my husband started using it, and within about 2-3 days, his fingertips stopped cracking and splitting.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that was a problem he'd had for years and years. He'd been a teacher for a number of years, and all the chalkboard dust, and then he'd been a garbage man for a number of years and would wear gloves and year round in all sorts of weather. And so we'd never been able to fix that. And all I did was make the goat milk soap, and it fixed that problem. So that was kind of how Goat Milk Stuff got born, and what we started with. We now are actually the first and only grade A goat dairy in the state of Indiana, and so we're able to sell the fluid milk. So we sell milk. We sell it both raw and pasteurized. We sell chocolate milk. That's like hugely popular. We have trouble keeping that available.
I'll bet.
And then we do liquid, not liquid, but drinkable yogurt. And we're working towards kefir. We actually had kefir available, and we had to stop selling it because they're making us test it for alcohol content, which I thought was really funny. So we had to stop that until we can get that figured out, because it can ferment, and so we have to make sure that does not get too high. And then we do gelato.
Wow.
Which is like an ice cream, but better. And we do, I'm trying to go through the cabinets. We do fudge and caramel and toffee. Cheese, obviously. We do a spreadable cheese called Chev. We do a feta and a marinated feta. And then we're experimenting with some pressed cheeses, which are really good, but we don't have those available for shipping yet. Right now, you can only ship the Chev and the feta. So we pretty much do just about everything you can do with the milk.
And soap.
And soap. Yep. Yeah, the soap ships.
Is this bar soap?
It is bar soap. We also have a liquid soap.
Oh, wow.
We do have a liquid goat milk soap as well. I tell people with skin issues, start with the bar soap. Bar soap is more mild, and it's just a function of how it's made. You actually have to cook liquid soap to make it, so it's not harsh, but it's the bar soap is just more mild. So if you have anything like eczema, psoriasis, we have tons and tons of customers with that. We do what we call our purity soap, which is what most people for eczema use, and then we have our tea tree soap, which is what most people for psoriasis use, but some of them switch, some of them prefer one over the other, because everybody's skin is different. You really just have to test to see which one yours reacts to the best. And so we have smaller sizes of soap available so people can try smaller ones before figuring out. And then if you don't have any skin problems, we have all sorts of fun scents like oatmeal milk and honey and black raspberry and almond, which smells like cherries, and all sorts of stuff like that if you're not having any skin issues but just want moisturized skin.
Well, that sounds great. I think my wife would love it. I'm going to have to get a bar and see what she thinks of it. So
I wanted to make available for your listeners, if they want a free bar of soap, they can get that. All they've got to do is go to our website, which is www.goatmilkstuff.com, and then just go to goatmilkstuff.com/livefitsoap. And Live Fit Soap is all one word, and they can get the details on how they can get a bar of soap to try.
Oh, fantastic. I will, of course, have that link on my show notes page, as well as your social media links. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us that I may not have thought to ask?
I get a lot of questions from people trying to live a healthier lifestyle and trying to make some changes. And what I always tell people is you have to know where your food is coming from, and we're so out of tune with that. Our food comes from the grocery store, right? That's where it comes from. But
right.
we just started, I don't know if you saw this, but America just started importing chicken from China. You want to talk about an untrustworthy food source,
No kidding.
We can talk about all the things that, they poisoned their own baby food and killed how many children because they put melamine in their formulas and stuff like that. And so it's important to know, and that's obviously those are extreme cases, but it takes a little bit of time, right? Most people aren't going to go out what I did and get their own animals. You're going to go out searching for farmers, but there's farmers everywhere. They're in urban locations, they're in a country, and you can, once you find them, you establish that relationship, and it's pretty easy to get your food from healthy sources once you find a farmer that you can work with. And so I just always encourage people, it's, remember the 80-20 rule, get the basics down, right? Find a good source of healthy meat that's raised on pastures. Find a good source of dairy that you can trust. Find some good organic vegetables that you can go, and then you can do stuff like go out to dinner and not have to worry about it, right? If you've got the core healthy food available to you at home, then it makes a huge difference. And it's not something you see immediately, but you see it down the line when you've been doing it for years and people around you are having these issues and your family isn't.
Well, we're really fortunate here where I live in Portland, Oregon, because they are very local oriented, farm to table type thing. There's farmers markets all over the place. So I know it's not the only place in the country, but this is the one that I know. So we're really fortunate to have that, and I'm sure the listeners have areas around them, unless they're stuck right in the middle of a big metropolis, that they can go find a nice legitimate farmers market from the farmers that are from the area, not the new yuppie kind where they're traveling as far as the jet plane will bring them with their grapes. But it's probably pretty easy to find something around you wherever you live is if you look.
Yeah, and there are people they'll drive an hour to pick up, a quarter of a cow or, whatnot. You can freeze milk and do things with frozen milk. You can freeze cheese if you don't have anybody close to you. But it's worth the effort because they're out there and the farmers need our support. I was just at a meeting last night discussing the next upcoming farm bill. And, the farm bill is all geared towards large scale, multi-million-dollar operations that really don't have the health of the consumer in mind. And the farmers need your local support. They really do, because that's what's going to change the food supply in America is people going out, and voting with their dollars and finding the right people.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. We need to keep things a little more local and a little more tangible within our grasp. Things are getting a little bit far out there as far as knowing where this whole chain of products comes from.
Agree totally.
Well, PJ, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I find goats fascinating. I was at the fair last weekend and saw some goats. My kids fell in love with them, and if I had some property, I guarantee you I'd get me some goats. Chickens first, because they are, after all, the gateway animal.
Exactly. You gotta start there. But yeah, no, they're awesome. They're so much fun. We do have, if people are interested, this past year we had 149 baby goats born on our property.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. And I Facebook Lived most of the births. So if that's something that people are interested, you can go to our Facebook page and find them. And then if you also go to our website at goatmilkstuff.com and click on the goats link, and then there'll be where they're all in one place and you can find them all there. But that's always fun to watch and see the newborn babies.
Well, I love your YouTube channel too. Your introduction on that was pretty interesting. Very cute. You have a lot of kids.
I do. Kids and kids. Yep.
So what do you have? 8 kids?
I have 8 children. Yeah.
Wow. Yes. 8 children and 149 kids.
Yeah. Fortunately, they're not all here, but that was born. It was kind of crazy.
All right, PJ, you continue having a great day. I'm going to do the same. Everybody can find out more about you at livefitpodcast.com for this episode, and buy some goat milk stuff.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Live Fit Podcast. Please subscribe and share with someone you care about. Read show notes, articles, resources, and learn more about our weight management programs at livefitpodcast.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and always remember to live fit.